Not all dynasties are created equal. Some teams win one championship and call themselves great. Some teams win 3 and call themselves a dynasty. Some teams win 5 straight and create a record that has stood for 70 years and counting. But within the pantheon of baseball's greatest runs of dominance, there are levels. 7 of them, each one more powerful, more sustained, and more historically significant than the last. From a team that killed a dynasty in the most dramatic Game 7 ever played, all the way up to the franchise that invented the concept of a dynasty and changed the sport forever. 7 levels. 7 runs of greatness. 1 mountain. Let us start climbing. Level 1, the Dynasty Killer. The first level of baseball dynasty is not actually a dynasty at all. It is the team that proved dynasties can be stopped. The team that walked into October as a massive underdog and slayed the most dominant champion in modern baseball. That was the 2001 Arizona Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks were in their 4th year of existence. They had won 92 games, a respectable total, but nothing that suggested they were about to make history. Their opponent in the World Series was the 3-time defending champion New York Yankees, a team that had won 4 of the last 5 fall classics and whose roster included Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera, Roger Clemens, Bernie Williams, and Andy Pettitte. The Yankees were not just defending champions, they were a machine. The series was played 7 weeks after the September 11th terrorist attacks. Yankee Stadium was draped in American flags. The nation was rooting for New York. The Diamondbacks were playing against a city's grief. None of it mattered. Arizona had Randy Johnson and Curt Schilling. Johnson was 6'10", threw 100 miles per hour, and was in the middle of winning 4 consecutive Cy Young awards. He had the most intimidating presence on a pitcher's mound that baseball had ever seen. Left-handed hitters did not just struggle against him, they feared him. His fastball came from an angle that seemed physically impossible, a sidearm delivery from a man who stood nearly 7 feet tall, and by the time hitters picked up the ball, it was already past them. Schilling was a bulldog who thrived on pressure and pitched on short rest without blinking. Where Johnson was terrifying, Schilling was relentless, a pitcher who wanted the ball in every big game and dared the moment to break him. Together, they combined for 43 regular season wins and accounted for all 4 Diamondbacks victories in the series. They pitched 38 2/3 of the team's 65 total innings. Johnson posted a 1.04 ERA. Schilling posted a 1.69 ERA. They were co-MVPs of the World Series, the first time the award had been shared since 1981. The series went 7 games and produced some of the most dramatic moments in postseason history. The Yankees won Games 4 and 5 on walk-off hits in the 9th inning. Tino Martinez and Scott Brosius each hitting game-tying home runs off closer Byung-Hyun Kim. Jeter earned the nickname Mr. November with his walk-off homer in Game 4. For 2 nights, it looked like destiny belonged to New York. Then Johnson pitched a 7-inning blowout in Game 6. And in Game 7, Schilling and Clemens dueled into the late innings before Johnson came out of the bullpen on 1 day's rest. The Diamondbacks entered the bottom of the 9th, trailing 2-1 against Mariano Rivera, the greatest closer in baseball history, a man who had converted 23 consecutive postseason saves. Mark Grace singled, Tony Womack doubled to tie it, and Luis Gonzalez blooped a single over a drawn-in infield to win the World Series. A franchise that was 4 years old had beaten a dynasty that was 4 titles deep. The greatest closer ever had blown the save. The Yankees' three-peat was dead. The Diamondbacks never won another championship. They were not a dynasty. But they proved that dynasties could be killed, and that is where every dynasty conversation has to start. Level 2. The Even Year Magic. If Level 1 is killing a dynasty, Level 2 is building one that nobody can explain. A dynasty so strange, so inconsistent, so defiant of logic that even the team's own fans called it what it was. Even year bullshit. The San Francisco Giants won the World Series in 2010, 2012, and 2014. 3 titles in 5 years. They missed the playoffs entirely in the odd years between them. There was no rational explanation. There was only Buster Posey. Gerald Dempsey Posey III arrived in San Francisco in 2010 as a 23-year-old catcher from Leesburg, Georgia. He hit .305 with 18 home runs in his rookie season, won the National League Rookie of the Year award, and led the Giants to their first championship since the franchise had moved to San Francisco in 1958. A 56-year drought ended by a kid from Georgia who caught every postseason inning. In 2011, a home plate collision with the Marlins' Scott Cousins shattered Posey's left ankle and tore 3 ligaments in his leg. His season ended after 45 games. The injury was so gruesome that replays were difficult to watch. Doctors questioned whether he would ever be the same player. The Giants missed the playoffs. The even-year magic was on hold. He came back in 2012 and won the National League MVP, hitting .336 with 24 home runs and 103 runs batted in. He led the Giants to their second title in 3 years, a World Series sweep of the Detroit Tigers. Along the way, the Giants came back from 2 games to none against the Reds in the division series, and from 3 games to 1 against the Cardinals in the championship series. Posey hit a grand slam in the clinching game against Cincinnati. In 2014, he teamed with Madison Bumgarner to win the Giants' 3rd championship in 5 years. Bumgarner delivered one of the greatest World Series pitching performances in history, throwing a complete game shutout in Game 5 and then, on 2 days' rest, a 5-inning save in Game 7 against the Kansas City Royals. He entered Game 7 in the 5th inning with a 2-1 lead and retired the Royals for 5 consecutive innings, throwing 68 pitches on fumes and adrenaline. When the final out was recorded, Bumgarner's World Series ERA stood at 0.25 over 36 innings. It was the most dominant October pitching performance since Christy Mathewson threw 3 shutouts in the 1905 World Series. Posey finished his career with a .302 batting average, 158 home runs, 3 World Series rings, an MVP award, a Rookie of the Year award, 5 Silver Slugger awards, a Gold Glove, and 7 All-Star selections. He is one of only 3 catchers in history to win at least 3 World Series and catch at least 3 no-hitters, joining Yogi Berra and Bill Carrigan. His impact on the game went beyond statistics. Major League Baseball implemented the Buster Posey rule to protect catchers at home plate after his devastating 2011 injury. He retired in 2021 and became the Giants' president of baseball operations. The Giants' dynasty was real, but it was strange. They never won 95 games in any of their championship seasons. They never dominated the regular season the way true powerhouses do. They simply showed up every other October and won the whole thing. 3 rings in 5 years. No explanation required. Level 3, the dynasty that should have been. Level 2 won 3 titles in 5 years with inconsistent regular seasons. Level 3 did the opposite. They dominated the regular season for 14 consecutive years and won only 1 championship. The 1990s Atlanta Braves are the most successful regular season dynasty in baseball history, and they are also the most frustrating. From 1991 through 2005, the Braves won 14 consecutive division titles. 14. No team in any major American sport has ever matched that streak of sustained excellence. They won 5 National League pennants during that stretch. They appeared in the World Series 5 times. They won it once. In 1995, against the Cleveland Indians. The foundation of the Braves dynasty was the greatest pitching rotation in baseball history. Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, and John Smoltz. 3 future Hall of Famers who pitched together for a decade and combined for 7 Cy Young Awards in the 1990s alone. All 3 had their numbers retired by the Braves. All three were inducted into Cooperstown on their first ballot. No team has ever had three first-ballot Hall of Famers pitching in the same rotation at the same time. Maddux was the professor, a right-hander who never threw hard, but never threw a hittable pitch. He won 4 consecutive Cy Young Awards from 1992 through 1995, the first pitcher in history to accomplish that feat. During that 4-year stretch, he posted a combined 1.98 earned run average, won 75 games, and allowed fewer than 1 base runner per inning. He threw complete games on fewer than 90 pitches. He once threw a complete game on just 78 pitches, the most efficient start by any pitcher in nearly 20 years. He painted corners with a precision that made hitters look foolish. He won 355 career games and collected 18 Gold Gloves, the most by any player in history at any position. Glavine was the crafty left-hander who lived on the outside corner, throwing pitch after pitch just off the edge of the strike zone and daring umpires to call it a ball. Most of them called it a strike. He won 305 career games and 2 Cy Young Awards. He was the ace who pitched the Braves to their 1995 championship, throwing 8 shutout innings in the clinching Game 6 against Cleveland. Smoltz was the power arm, the fireballer who could reach 98 miles per hour and break a slider across the outside corner that made right-handed hitters buckle at the knees. He was the only pitcher in history with both 200 career wins and 150 career saves, having converted from starter to closer in 2001, and then back to starter again. He won the Cy Young Award in 1996 and was the Braves' most dominant postseason pitcher. Behind them, Bobby Cox managed with a steady hand for 2 decades, earning Hall of Fame induction alongside his 3 pitchers in 2014. Chipper Jones played third base and hit .303 from both sides of the plate over a 19-year career. The greatest switch hitter in National League history. Andruw Jones patrolled center field with a defensive brilliance that earned him 10 consecutive Gold Glove awards. David Justice, Fred McGriff, J.V. Lopez, and Ryan Klesko provided power throughout the lineup at various points during the dynasty. But the Braves won only 1 ring. They lost the 1991 World Series to the Minnesota Twins in 7 games, one of the most dramatic series ever played, decided on a 10th-inning walk-off by Gene Larkin. They lost in 1992 to the Toronto Blue Jays in 6 games. They won the 1995 championship over Cleveland in 6 games, the only title of the entire run. Then they lost in 1996 to the Yankees after leading the series 2 games to none. They lost in 1999 to the Yankees in a 4-game sweep. The 90s dynasty that was supposed to win 5 or 6 championships won exactly 1. The Braves are level 3 because they proved that sustained regular season excellence does not guarantee October glory. They were the best team in baseball for a decade and a half. They had 3 first-ballot Hall of Fame pitchers throwing every 5 days. And they have 1 ring to show for it. The greatest cautionary tale in dynasty history. Level 4, the modern machine. The Braves dominated the regular season but could not win in October. Level 4 does both. The Los Angeles Dodgers built the most complete modern dynasty in baseball, combining regular season dominance with multiple championships in a way the Braves never could. From 2013 through 2025, the Dodgers won 12 of 13 National League West Division titles. They reached the postseason every single year. They built rosters with the highest payrolls in baseball, employed the most advanced analytics departments in the sport, and assembled talent through a combination of homegrown development, blockbuster trades, and free agent spending that no other franchise could match. The face of the dynasty was Clayton Kershaw, a left-hander from Dallas, Texas, who spent his entire 18-year career in a Dodger uniform. Kershaw won 3 Cy Young Awards, 1 MVP, and posted a 2.53 career ERA, the second lowest of the live ball era among pitchers with 2,000 or more innings. He struck out 3,052 batters. He threw a no-hitter. He was the best pitcher of his generation. For years, the Dodgers dynasty had a fatal flaw. They could not win the World Series. They lost in 2017 to the Houston Astros in a 7-game series later tainted by the Astros sign-stealing scandal. They lost in 2018 to the Boston Red Sox in 5 games. They lost in 2019 in the division series to the Washington Nationals, who went on to win the whole thing. Year after year, the most talented roster in baseball was built to win in October, and year after year, October broke their hearts. Kershaw's postseason struggles became a national talking point. Critics said he could not win the big game. His regular season brilliance, they argued, meant nothing without a ring. Then, in 2020, during a pandemic-shortened 60-game season, the Dodgers finally broke through. They posted the best record in baseball at 43-17, rolled through the expanded playoffs, and beat the Tampa Bay Rays in 6 games to win their first championship in 32 years. Kershaw was brilliant throughout the postseason. The monkey was off his back. The narrative was dead. 4 years later, the Dodgers won again, beating the Yankees in the 2024 World Series with a roster that now featured Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and the most electrifying player in baseball, Shohei Ohtani. The core had evolved. Kershaw was no longer the ace. He was the elder statesman, the bridge between the franchise's dark years under bankrupt owner Frank McCourt and its current golden age under Andrew Friedman's front office. And in 2025, with Kershaw in the bullpen for the final game of his 18-year career, the Dodgers came back from a 3-2 deficit to beat the Toronto Blue Jays in a 7-game epic. Will Smith hit a walk-off home run in the 11th inning of Game 7 to give the Dodgers their 3rd championship in 6 years and make them back-to-back champions for the first time since the 1998 through 2000 Yankees won 3 straight. Magic Johnson, the Lakers legend and Dodgers part owner, compared Kershaw's impact to Kobe Bryant's. Kershaw had shaped the culture, elevated the expectations, and served as the standard-bearer for an eventual dynasty. He retired after the 2025 World Series with 3 rings, over 3,000 strikeouts, a career ERA of 2.53, and a legacy as the pitcher who carried a franchise through its darkest years and into its brightest. His final moment in professional baseball was standing in the bullpen at Rogers Center, watching his teammates celebrate the championship he had spent 18 years chasing. The Dodgers are level 4 because they combined what no other modern team has combined: the sustained regular season dominance of the 90s Braves, the multiple championships of the Giants, and back-to-back titles that neither the Braves nor the Giants could achieve. 12 division titles, 3 World Series, the most complete modern dynasty in baseball. Level 5, the three-peat. The Dodgers won 3 titles in 6 years. Level 5 won 3 and 3. Consecutive, no gaps, no off years. 3 straight World Series championships, something only 2 franchises in baseball history have ever accomplished. The 1972 through 74 Oakland Athletics were the most unlikely dynasty in baseball history. They fought their owner, they fought each other. They fought in the clubhouse, in the dugout, and occasionally in the hotel bar. And then they went out and won every single October for 3 straight years. The owner was Charlie Finley, a flamboyant insurance salesman from Indiana who meddled in every aspect of the team's operations. He designed the uniforms, green and gold with white cleats, which the rest of baseball openly mocked. He paid players to grow mustaches and mutton chops, creating a team that looked like a band of Civil War cavalry officers. He tried to use an orange baseball. He tried to install a mechanical rabbit that would pop out of the ground and deliver fresh balls to the home plate umpire. He once fired his second baseman during the World Series. He was cheap, combative, and universally despised by his own roster. The players hated Finley. They also hated each other. Before Game 5 of the 1974 American League Championship Series, pitchers Rollie Fingers and Blue Moon Odom got into a fistfight in the clubhouse. Fingers needed stitches. He pitched in the game anyway. In 1972, outfielder Mike Epstein and pitcher Vida Blue nearly came to blows in the dugout during a game. The Athletics were a powder keg that somehow exploded in the right direction every October. The talent was undeniable. Reggie Jackson was the star, a right-handed power hitter with a charisma and arrogance that made him impossible to ignore. He hit 261 home runs during the 3-year run, led the league in home runs, slugging, and OPS multiple times, and was named World Series MVP in 1973 after hitting .310 with 6 runs batted in against the Mets. Catfish Hunter was a Hall of Fame right-hander who won 20 or more games in 3 of the 4 seasons from 1971 through 1974. He was the ace of the staff, a control pitcher who could throw strikes blindfolded and who kept his composure in the biggest moments. Vida Blue had won both the Cy Young Award and the MVP in 1971 at age 21, one of the most dominant debut seasons in history. Rollie Fingers was a mustachioed closer who saved games with a waxed handlebar mustache that became as famous as his slider. He won the World Series MVP in 1974. The Athletics beat the Cincinnati Reds' Big Red Machine in 1972, overcoming a roster that included Pete Rose, Johnny Bench, and Joe Morgan. They beat the New York Mets in 1973 in a gritty 7-game series. And they beat the Los Angeles Dodgers in 1974 in 5 games. 3 straight titles against 3 different opponents, each featuring a different hero. But the dynasty was destroyed almost as quickly as it was built, shattered by the very force that would reshape baseball forever: free agency. Before 1976, players were bound to their teams by the reserve clause, unable to sell their services to the highest bidder. When free agency arrived, Finley's refusal to pay his stars competitive salaries sent them scattering across baseball like seeds in the wind. Hunter left after the 1974 season when an arbitrator ruled that Finley had breached his contract. He signed with the Yankees for $3.2 million, the richest contract in baseball history at the time. Jackson was traded to Baltimore after a bitter contract dispute in 1976. Then signed with the Yankees as a free agent. Fingers left for San Diego. Blue was traded. Within 2 years, the greatest collection of talent in Oakland history was gone, dismantled by the economics of the sport. Jackson went to the Yankees, where he earned his Mr. October nickname by hitting 3 home runs on 3 consecutive pitches in Game 6 of the 1977 World Series against the Dodgers. Each home run went further than the last. He won 2 more rings in New York in 1977 and 1978, becoming the only player in history to be a central figure in 2 separate dynasty runs. The Oakland Athletics are level 5 because 3 consecutive championships is a feat only one other franchise has ever matched. They did it with a roster that could barely stand to be in the same room together, managed by players who fought in the clubhouse before World Series games, owned by a man they all wanted to punch, and held together by nothing except the shared understanding that winning was better than losing, even if you hated everyone you were winning with. Level 6, the 5-peat. 3 straight is remarkable, 5 straight is unprecedented. The 1949 through 1953 New York Yankees won 5 consecutive World Series championships, a record that has stood for over 70 years and that no team has come close to matching. The man who built the dynasty was Casey Stengel, a 63-year-old former clown who had been fired from every managerial job he had ever held. He managed the Brooklyn Dodgers for 3 years and never finished above 5th place. He managed the Boston Braves for 6 years and finished 7th 4 times. In 9 seasons as a major league manager, he never once finished in the top half of the standings. "I became a major league manager in several cities and was discharged," he said. "We call it discharged because there is no question I had to leave." When the Yankees hired him in 1948, the press called it the worst decision in franchise history. The Yankees' own farm director said the feeling around the club was that they had hired a clown. 5 years later, the clown had 5 rings, and nobody in baseball was laughing anymore. Stengel revolutionized the game with his platoon system, shuffling lineups constantly, matching hitters against favorable pitching matchups, and trusting role players in moments where other managers would have ridden their stars into the ground. He used 95 different batting orders in a single season. His players grumbled. They also cashed World Series checks every October. The roster evolved constantly, which was part of Stengel's genius. He did not build around one superstar, he built around depth. Joe DiMaggio was the star of the 1949 and 1950 teams, hitting with the grace and power that had made him the most famous athlete in America. But DiMaggio was declining, battling injuries and age, and after the 1951 World Series, he retired. In his place, a 19-year-old switch hitter from Commerce, Oklahoma, named Mickey Mantle took over center field and immediately became the most exciting player in the American League. Mantle could hit the ball farther than anyone from either side of the plate. He could run from home to first in 3.1 seconds, the fastest time ever recorded for a player his size. He was raw, explosive, and destined for greatness. Yogi Berra caught every important game, managed the pitching staff with quiet genius, and hit 27 home runs with 108 runs batted in during the final championship season. Stengel was asked once why the Yankees' pitching was so dominant. "Our catcher," he said. "He looks cumbersome, but he is quick as a cat." Whitey Ford returned from 2 years of military service in Korea and went 18-6 as the ace of the staff, throwing with the composure of a man twice his age. Billy Martin hit .257 during the 1953 regular season, the worst average among the starters. Nobody would have blamed Stengel for benching him. Instead, Stengel trusted his guy. In the World Series against Brooklyn, Martin hit .500 with 12 hits, including a walk-off single in Game 6 to clinch the 5th consecutive title. The worst hitter in the regular season lineup became the best hitter on the October stage. That was the Stengel Yankees in a single sentence. The dynasty ended in 1954, not because the Yankees declined, but because the Cleveland Indians won 111 games, the most in American League history. The Yankees won 103 that year and still finished 8 games back. It took the greatest regular season in American League history to stop them. No team has won even 4 straight since. The closest anyone has come are the 1972 through 1974 Athletics and the 1998 through 2000 Yankees, both of whom won 3. 5 straight remains untouchable. Level 7. The original. Every dynasty on this list exists because of what happened at Level 7. Every franchise that has ever called itself a dynasty is following a template that was created by one team, in one city, built around one player. The 1920s and 30s New York Yankees did not just win championships, they invented the idea of a baseball dynasty. Before Babe Ruth arrived in New York, no franchise had ever sustained dominance over multiple decades. No franchise had ever built a brand around winning. No franchise had ever constructed a stadium because one player was so popular that the old one could not hold the crowds. Ruth arrived from the Boston Red Sox in 1920 for $100,000, the most famous transaction in sports history, and immediately changed the sport. He hit 54 home runs in his first season as a Yankee, more than every other American League team except one. The entire St. Louis Browns hit 37. The entire Philadelphia Athletics hit 44. One man uthomered whole franchises. No individual athlete in any sport had ever dominated a statistical category by such an absurd margin. In 1921, he hit 59. In 1927, he hit 60, a record that stood for 34 years. He finished with 714 career home runs, a record that stood for 39 years, until Hank Aaron broke it in 1974. He had a .342 career batting average, a .474 on-base percentage that is still the highest in history, and a career OPS that has never been matched. He was also a dominant pitcher before becoming a hitter, winning 89 games with a 2.28 ERA and 3 World Series titles with the Red Sox. But Ruth did more than hit home runs. He ended the dead ball era. He replaced Ty Cobb's inside game of bunts and stolen bases with a power game that filled stadiums and made fans stand on their feet and scream. He made the New York Yankees the most famous franchise in professional sports. They built Yankee Stadium for him in 1923, a 60,000-seat cathedral in the Bronx. They called it the house that Ruth built because the old Polo Grounds could not hold the crowds that came to see him play. Behind Ruth, Lou Gehrig hit .340 with 493 home runs and played 2,130 consecutive games, the Iron Horse who never missed a day. Together they formed the most devastating 1-2 punch in baseball history, the 3 and 4 hitters in a lineup that sports writers named Murderer's Row. The 1927 Yankees won 110 games and swept the Pittsburgh Pirates in the World Series. They are still considered by many to be the greatest single-season team ever assembled. The 1928 team swept the Cardinals. Back-to-back sweeps. Nobody had ever done that before. The dynasty continued through the 30s with Joe DiMaggio, who led the Yankees to 4 consecutive championships from 1936 through 1939, matching a record that would stand until Stengel's team broke it. From 1923 through 1943, the Ruth through DiMaggio era produced 11 pennants and 8 World Series championships. The Yankees became synonymous with winning. Their pinstripes became the most recognizable uniform in sports. Their franchise became the gold standard against which every other team in every other sport would measure itself. When Ruth died on August 16, 1948, over 100,000 people filed past his casket at Yankee Stadium in 2 days. 75,000 stood outside St. Patrick's Cathedral during his funeral, listening to the service on loudspeakers in the August heat. He had transcended baseball. He had transcended sports. He had become an American icon, a symbol of power and possibility that resonated far beyond the diamond. That is why Ruth's Yankees are level 7. Every dynasty that followed, the Stengel Yankees, the Oakland Athletics, the Atlanta Braves, the San Francisco Giants, the Los Angeles Dodgers, all of them exist in the shadow of what Ruth built. He did not just create a dynasty. He created the idea that a dynasty was possible. He proved that one franchise, with the right players and the right culture and the right stadium and the right amount of swagger, could dominate a sport for decades. Every dynasty since is a variation on his theme. Every champion since is chasing his ghost. The Oakland Athletics proved 3 straight was possible. The Stengel Yankees proved 5 straight was possible. But Ruth's Yankees proved that a franchise could own a sport, that winning could become an identity, that a team could be bigger than the game itself. They built the stadium, they built the brand, they built the template. Everything else is a footnote. 7 levels, 7 dynasties, each one greater than the last. A 4-year-old franchise that killed the greatest modern dynasty by walking off Mariano Rivera in the 9th inning of Game 7. A catcher from Georgia who won 3 rings in 5 years and changed the rules of the game with a single collision at home plate. A pitching rotation so dominant they won 14 straight division titles with 3 Hall of Famers throwing on the same staff, and still only got 1 ring. A modern machine that spent more money, used more data, and assembled more talent than any franchise in history, finally breaking through for 3 titles and back-to-back championships after years of heartbreak. A roster of brawling, mustachioed misfits who hated each other and their owner and still won 3 straight World Series because talent does not care about chemistry. A clown who became a genius, juggled 95 batting orders, and won 5 straight championships that nobody has matched in 7 decades. And a fat kid from Baltimore who built a stadium, changed a sport, and created a dynasty that every team, in every era, in every sport, has been trying to replicate ever since. Babe Ruth, Level 7. The original dynasty, the peak of the mountain. Nobody has built anything higher. Like and subscribe for more baseball documentaries. Until next time.